This is Stoke-on-Trent's Festival Park. There's Toys R Us. If we go around here we can see the old Odeon, Hot Shots, cinema and bowling complex. Behind me here is the A500 roundabout, or the roundabout that will take you to the A500. Now it may look like a fairly run-down, out-of-town retail park now, but 30 years ago something pretty special happened here. Up there, that's where the Staffordshire Maypole Hill was. So I reckon that roundabout there just about marked where the entrance would have been. 30 years ago this site was home to the 1986 National Garden Festival. Now there may not be very much left of the Garden Festival. It's been heavily redeveloped, this site has, but I'm going to have a walk round and see if I can find anything that can show you that is a remainder of the old 1986 National Garden Festival. Let's see what we can find. Right, now we were just standing on a bridge about here. This area here was where the car parking was. Now it's where, so I'll turn it around again, yeah. That's the roundabout that I just showed you. That main entrance, that's where the little roundabout is. There's your Maypole Hill on the map. And this here, that was the car parking, which is now the Odeon Cinema Complex. I'm going to walk down and see what else I can see. Back in the early 90s, this was the place to come to watch a film in Stoke-on-Trent. We did have a cinema in the town centre, but it was pretty small and pretty run down. The 10-pin building here in the Quasar, really popular in the sort of early to mid and the late 90s. I think the Quasar's closed now. I know it's a place that opened and closed a lot of times. I think last time it was open was quite a few years ago. You can see the signs a bit wrecked. The 10-pin building was changed hands a few times. It used to be called the Super Bowl, but that's more or less what became of the car park. I suspect bits of this car park are actually the original National Garden Festival car park. Let's see now around here where these houses are. Whether they were here originally before the Garden Festival, I don't know, but they are still here. And they look like a pretty reasonable set of houses. I'm now going to have a wander over to the pub and tell you a bit about that. I'm now standing on this bridge here. And that there, what is down as the Canal Side Tavern, there's that pub there, the Toby Carvery. The marina is looking a lot quieter than it was. That marina was packed with narrowboats a few years ago. Back in the early 90s, this pub here was called the China Gardens, and they had a posh restaurant style half and a cardboard beer mats and fruit machines half. Now it's pretty quiet, but it's a Thursday afternoon, more or less what you'd expect. It's good to see people are still using the marina, although it's like it's not getting the same use it used to get. Now on this footpath here, between this junction and the top bit up there, on that footpath. Now you can see on there marked Etruria Hall. That building is actually there. It's an old stately home, Etruria Hall is, which was given grade 2 listed status in 1973. I believe it belonged to Josiah Wedgwood. It was actually restored for the 1986 Garden Festival. When the site was sold, it was amalgamated into the hotel. As you can see, the trees are maturing quite nicely. It's, you know, it's a different place to it was 30 years ago. The footpath isn't really standing the test of time. It's getting pretty overgrown, but it's still usable. That hotel is the moat out in the distance, and if you look on here, you'll see that was built behind the Etruria Hall to the side of it, covering part of the formal gardens, and that's been there for quite a long time. Okay, so I've now walked from there, past the Trolley Hall, and round into here, this area here. That there used to be the fountain. This is like a little spike which you could climb up. And I climbed to the top myself a few times in the mid-90s. This is the spike here, and basically if you want to climb it, what you have to do is put your hands on the side and use the brick holes to step up to the top. It's quite easy to do. I won't climb it now because I never really knew how safe it was in the first place, and I was a lot younger and lighter then than I am now, but it's still standing and it's still in reasonable nick. If we look at it, we can see, yeah, it's not been weeded, it's a bit overgrown, bit of graffiti, but it's still here, it still works. Bit of rubbish strewn about the place. That's a reflection of Stoke-on-Trent really. And this is what the plaque says: Etruria, the spirit of the future, presented by Steatley Brick and Tile Limited, 1986. And it stood up, it's still there. Not in the state it once was. I don't think I'd feel as confident about climbing it now. But it's nice to see some of this work that went into the Garden Festival has survived. Like this mosaic work here. This isn't actually the big round pond that you saw on the map. This is just part of the bit where the spike is. If you look there, here we go. There's the spike, and this is part of that little area there. That big pond there leads you into the formal gardens, and that's here. As you can see, there's, again, it needs a bit of weeding, it's a bit overgrown, but it's still here. The fountain at the top hasn't worked probably since 1986, and again we've got quite a bit of rubbish. And we had a few bricks nicked as well, these nice coping stones off the top. Yes, I'm not going to describe that bed, not very pleasant. We've got an old pushchair there, a shopping trolley, and we've got these here, these brick walls here, that again lead you into the formal gardens. That's the back of the moat house. I'm going to walk now into the formal gardens and we'll talk a bit more. Once upon a time, i.e. the mid-90s, every one of these brick spires had a concrete ornament on top. They've almost all been taken now, apart from a couple which are perhaps more difficult to access. The ones that are missing are actually a lot nicer. They were eagles or hawks or something. There was some kind of bird of prey, some of them were. And again, they were very easy to take because you could climb onto that little window there, then you could haul yourself up onto there and jump up and grab one. We never took any. We occasionally turned them around so they were facing the wrong way because they weren't cemented down. And that was still 10, 11 years after the Garden Festival had ended. This is probably one of the few areas where there is real evidence that the National Garden Festival 1986 was in Stoke-on-Trent. Well, the National Garden Festival opened on the 1st of May 1986 until the 26th of October, and it's now late September 2016, so we're talking 30 years. As you can see, there is a little bit left, but there's not very much. Stoke-on-Trent's it's not really a Manchester, let's say. It used to be well known for the potteries, but the pottery industry's mainly moved abroad. We've still got a couple, Port Marion, Emma Bridgewater, who are doing all right and are still local thriving businesses. But back in 1986, Stoke-on-Trent did do something pretty special. The Garden Festival was really impressive. It had cable cars, it had gardens, it had a farm, it had markets, it had a train, a 2-foot gauge train running around the park, which actually ended up going to Fledgeby in Norfolk, the train did, and some of the carriages went to Africa. All that's gone now, and the site's been heavily redeveloped. When it was actually made, they had a lot of problems with contamination and mine shafts, and it cost $5 million just to clear the site. To actually develop the Garden Festivals and to build it cost $18 million. It was built on the site of the Shelton Bar Steelworks, and it was pretty impressive. You know, if you look online, you can see videos of the National Garden Festival 30 years ago, people going around. I mean, BBC Two covered it, the Queen came and opened it, and there's not really many reasons that the Queen's going to come to Stoke-on-Trent, to be fair. Not much left, as I said. I'll show you a bit more and I'll talk about it from behind the camera, but I guess in another 30 years time there'll probably be nothing left of the Garden Festival at all to say that it was ever here, apart from the name of Festival Park. But I'm going to move on. Okay, so we are there. It's not moved very far, as you can see. There's where the fountain was, and those are the walls. So what we're looking at now is this bit of the canal down here. Now that had all kind of Chinese style huts and things built alongside the canal, but all that's gone now. It's become office blocks, a road, there's a little bridge over the canal, but very little evidence beyond this wall of the 1986 Garden Festival. I've got that down on the map there, which again is that little wharf you can see coming in. There's number 6. So that was the Canal Heritage Display. It's now an office. We'll move on. What we're looking at now as we walk away from the formal gardens to a car park which is basically built over a good chunk of the formal gardens is Waterworld. Waterworld's an indoor water park. It was built in 1989 and it was bought running at a loss in 1999 by Mo Chandri. Now I believe it's one of the only such parks in the UK that's running at a profit. They've recently had a big expansion. I don't know whether it's opened yet, but it looks like it is. Last time I came there was just scaffolding and hoarding. We can have a closer look when I get closer. Again, that's the back of the moat house. It's a huge hotel. You can see it's taken up this whole area of the garden festival. All this formal garden area here and these fields, that's completely gone. If you look at number 10 there, that building around the end of the formal gardens in the orange bit, that's roughly where Waterworld is now. Number 10 I've got down as the Royal Doulton Rose Garden. So that's gone, and instead we've got this. As you can see, there's still a few finishing touches to do to the expansion, but they've clearly expanded it. They must be making money, which is good to hear. This road here didn't exist at all in 1986. If you look on my map, it's basically cutting through the middle of that field there, more or less. Number 7 you can see there is down as Adventure Play. Number 9 we've got down as the Royal Doulton Rose Garden. That's number 10. Number 10 is the New Cardiff Newcastle Technodrome. So that's clearly gone. Basically we've got offices, quite a few blocks, but you can access the park area down here, which is what I'm going to try and do now. We've also got a ski slope now, Festival Park dry ski slope, and again that was a big thing for Stoke. It was built after the National Garden Centre closed, and it used to be really popular. Now it looks like it needs investment. It's a bit run down. They're not getting the sort of custom they used to get, but Stoke-on-Trent has a dry ski slope, and probably at least partly due to the National Garden Festival. These brick buildings we can see round this corner here, they I suspect are a remnant of the Garden Festival. Looking at my map here, I'm guessing we're probably talking this area here in front of number 7. So it's probably around about there was where the cable car station was. It's obviously long gone now. There might be a concrete basin for it, but there's probably not much more. I'm going to head up this path from here now and see if I can find my way into the parkland area. Maybe see if there's any other sculptures still knocking around, which were done for the Garden Festival. I suspect this path here with these steps is marked on the map as being around about that one there with the number 9 on it. Looking at here, it's discussed number 9, it's the Newcastle Technodrome, so that must have been around here, either these offices or the ski slope, which again, as I said, it's looking quite run down now. I'm going to head up that path and see if I can get to the top area where there might be a bit more left. These steps were probably built for the garden festival and they're still here, but there's a lot of weeds and it's pretty overgrown. The trees have matured quite nicely and it's looking like a reasonably nice wooded area. Up behind the office building it's looking like a natural wood, and there's a reason for that. Instead of getting professional tree planters in, they basically use old steel workers and they told them go and plant some trees. So they did, and they did it in a very random way. There wasn't a great deal of thought or planning to it, but when the trees started to mature, they've actually given it a fairly natural woodland look, which is good. So maybe it was a good decision. Obviously this border here was for the garden festival. Similarly, benches and things, there's going to be these kind of things around. They've deteriorated, wood rots. Really, to be honest, I'm surprised it's still here after 30 years, especially with nobody maintaining it. Now, I've come to a junction where I can go down that path or up this path of steps here, and I'm hoping that that junction is this one here. That looks like the junction, so I'll follow that up. That should take me up to where the Maypole Hill was, but I think that's gone now. I think that's been built on. This little area behind, that might still be there. Let's go and have a look. Well, I've come to the top of that path there, and I found a sculpture which is remaining from the National Garden Festival 1986. It's stone, so I'm not surprised, and it's looking pretty good 30 years on. This one I know is called Windborne the Phoenix by a chap called Keir Smith. Again, it's something which most of the people who come down here to Festival Park will probably never see, but there's obviously scraps of this sort of thing around, and it's not even been attacked. There's no damage, there's no graffiti. You know, it's nice to see something. You can almost, it's actually weathered quite nicely. Probably looks better now than it did in 1986 for it. And when you stand here and look around, you can imagine loads of people swarming around looking at the plants. These trees are a lot smaller. You can almost imagine being at the garden festival. I like that sculpture, and I'm really pleased to see something which appears to be more or less fully intact. Just to show you on the map, that sculpture must be there at the top of that path, or just up from the retail side there. Garden festival bins still intact. One assumes they're still actually being emptied. Not in great shape, but they're still here. We're now at this little clearing here. The maypole must have been down there, down one of those paths. It's clearly, pretty clearly gone. I can see one possible location over there. I'm going to have a quick look to see if it's still here, but I'm not too hopeful. That's where we've just come from, and we're now there. Again, I'm walking this path and you can see evidence of the work that went into this place. A bit moss covered now, but somebody's gone to the trouble of building this rock garden 30 years ago. The steps are still there, the rocks are still there. Not in the greatest of shape, but it's still definitely present. And we're moving on again here, we can see more steps. Not much litter considering, really. Not a lot of graffiti or vandalism, which is, I have to say, given my local knowledge, a little bit surprising. But again, it's nice to see. And this is clearly where Maypole Hill was. There's the steps. That's a pretty overgrown area. I can see some man-made planks and sticks in it, and I can see the remnants of the circle. I think we can safely say there's not enough left of this to say it's still here, but you can see that that is here on the map, where that blue circle is. Again, you can see the traces that it was here, but I would call that one pretty much gone. I'm going to head back the way I came now, see if the suspension bridge is still there. This is an interesting point here. If you look at my map, you can see this path here. There's that one there which winds down to there. And opposite there, where we've now got this big car park, that is Toys R Us. So when I said earlier that I thought part of this car park may have been just added onto really and built on, maybe original Garden Festival car park, that could well be true looking at it from this angle. Right, I'm now walking along this path here to this sort of triangular circle thing. Now I believe, looking at Google Maps, because here that there, I'm on the wrong bit, sorry. That there is there, and that's marked as being a stone circle. Again, built for the National Garden Festival 1986, still here 30 years later. Bit graffitied, but not that much considering. You know, in ways I'm surprised it's in as good nick as it is. The grass is mown, it actually looks like a fairly well kept, well looked after area. Again, it's nice to see that some of the park has maintained its, you know, there is some real evidence of the Garden Festival here. You can see somebody called, whose name begins with D, has decided to ruin it at some point. But otherwise, it's a pleasant little spot. And the stone circle, which again, if you look on your Garden Festival map, it's precisely here, the stone circle is still there. Now I'm going to walk over to the suspension bridge if I can find it and check which way it is, then I'm going to make my way over. I believe it's this way. Let's go. These footpaths are still in use. I've seen the odd dog walker and cyclist. You can see the top of the ski slope there. So that gives you an idea where this is. Right now I think we're around about here on my Garden Festival map. So the ski slope must be there. That means the cable car station might be over there. We'll go and have a look and see if we can see it. I'll be honest, I don't think we will. But that piece of concrete, you might just be able to see through the trees there, is the old cable car station. There's not a lot left of it. It's obviously being incorporated into the ski slopes infrastructure, but that's more than likely it. So the cable car station, the concrete base is still there. This looks like it's one of the picnic areas. Could be somewhere along that path there. Looking at it, it might be there. I'm going to see if I can find what this is here. That says number 28, and that says, according to the map, let's see, 28, the compass. Let's see if we can find a lot of these would have been picnic areas, I guess, when they were being used. Again, the path is not looking very used, it's mossed over. I'm hoping this path will take us to either the compass or the suspension bridge. Let's see. Well, looking at this now, that circle we were just at, that must have been the compass. I've walked down that path there and I'm at the suspension bridge, and it's still here. Again, it would have to have been quite a substantial structure to take all those visitors' weights back in 1986, but it stood up well. It's not been graffitied, it's not been vandalised, and the area down here actually is pretty well kept. It's mown, short, It's not overgrown. The paths look like they're in use. Bit of graffiti. Thanks, Deke. But there you go. And if you look at my map again, you'll see there's the suspension bridge. That's where we are now. What's down there, the railroad would have gone underneath this. There, that's where the railway would have gone. And it looks like there's a pedestrian footpath alongside it. But that whole area now, the labyrinth, that's now got Morrison's, Curry's, that sort of thing on it. I'm going to follow on, but the tour's more or less over now. That retail part more or less covers this entire area. The supermarket festivals, where are this? Yeah, the Super King's Festival Market, the arena, the labyrinth, all that has been built on. But this little area here, this is still here. And again, considering it's been 30 years, it's not in bad nick. Just come here, the other side of the suspension bridge, I found another remnant. These railings are, paint's peeled a bit of moss, a bit rusted, but these stone steps are still here and looking in pretty good nick. These must take you right down to where the railway used to go. And looking at my map here, they must be there. Again, it's not much, but it's something. Could Stoke-on-Trent do another garden festival? I don't know. The land needed something doing with it. It needed cleaning up and sorting out. And that sort of volume of land and that sort of money isn't going to be available a lot of the time. But it was, and they built it. And not much, but a bit, has lasted until 2016. There used to be picnic benches around here. Pretty sure there were. I think they were circular. All that's gone. I guess they rotted until they were dangerous and they were removed. Concrete bins are still here, the paths are still here, and it's still in use. I'm still seeing dog walkers, cyclists, people using it as a park area. And as I said, the trees have matured quite nicely. It's now looking like a strange hybrid between a manicured park and a natural wood. If that's what they were going for, then they've succeeded. Don't know what this was. Broken off bin down there in the distance. There's a concrete pad with a circle of rings around it, as if there was a bird cage or something here. Very large bird cage. No doubt if you look at the old Festival Park videos that were taken in 1986, you'll be able to see what this was. But 30 years later, this is all that's left. I think it was a bird cage actually. I'll have to check. And now at this part of the park here, away from the bridge, the labyrinth, no sign. Festival Expo, can't see it. I think I'm probably around here, 20 to 21, which is the wind pump and the tarn. No sign of it though. Could be in slightly the wrong place. It's very hard to orientate yourself now because there's been so much development. That's Morrison's, and down that path there, that takes you to the path that goes under the suspension bridge. Again, I don't know if you can see it there, but there is bins around that are being filled and being emptied. Getting to the point now where I really don't feel like I can show you much more. Simply because there isn't much more to be shown. All the stuff here, that's gone, the labyrinth, the arena, the amphitheatre, the greenhouses there. They did exist for a while, but those greenhouses became the nursery for the entire city, and they used to grow all their plants and trees before they were ready for planting. Now they've been demolished, and I think it's going to become a solar energy plant. Well, let's walk down this way. We'll maybe have one last look at the suspension bridge, and then it's time to go. Like I said, there's not a lot left. Mainly the footpaths, if anything. But it's nice that some of it has lasted 30 years. Here we go, here's a commemorative plaque. Festival Park. Slightly graffitied by somebody who can't spell. On May the 7th, 1986, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II officially opened the second National Garden Festival of England here at Festival Park. Her Majesty, the festival site together with Shelton and Truro were key areas to the industrial development of the city of Stoke-on-Trent less than a decade before the ground vibrated to the sound of heavy machinery and the landscape was dominated by the blast furnaces, forges and chimneys of the Shelton Steelworks, half a kilometre south of this point in Etruria Hall, now part of the Moat House Hotel, former home of Josiah Wedgwood and whose famous Etruria pottery works were once sited by the canal. The city was given a unique opportunity to redevelop the derelict site by hosting the National Garden Festival of England. Over 2 million people visited the event in the summer of 1986. Thousands of exhibitions and activities were featured, including 70 themed gardens, and visitors were able to view the spectacle by railway and cable car. The Garden Festival attracted new private investment into the city, as well as creating a lasting legacy of green space for local people. Today the site is a combined leisure, retail and business park, set in the festival grounds for visitors and local people to enjoy. Well, they obviously succeeded. They met their objective. They wanted to create a lasting green space, and despite the swathe of supermarkets and retail units which has been built on what were largely attractions, the actual park remains, and it's pretty well used. It's in pretty good nick, and it's a pretty nice place to go for a wander, particularly for Stoke-on-Trent. So yeah, I think we can safely say, of the 30 years on, that the Garden Festival 1986 objectives met. This is now the main drag through Festival Park. This is PC World. You can see McDonald's in the distance. There's Mother Care, and there's Morrison's. This road doesn't exist during the 1986 Garden Festival. It would have been around here where the arena area is. Somewhere over there you'd have had the old Bull and Bush, but it's impossible to tell where now. Festival Park, access to open space. Please help to maintain the quality of the space for everyone to enjoy. Even though the Garden Festival was over 30 years ago, there's still sort of promoting access to what it created, which is that natural wonder. Well, that just about wraps it up. We've done the whistle-stop tour of the remnants of the Garden Festival 1986 on its 30th anniversary. Will there be anything left here in another 30 years' time? Maybe, perhaps the open space if it hasn't been built on or developed. But I like to think there will. It's been interesting, it's been hard work, but I'm glad I have found something. You know, it was a big event for Stoke, not much happens in Stoke-on-Trent. It's usually murders and hate crimes. So, yeah. Could it happen again? No. We had the land, we had the opportunity, we had the time, we had the money. 2 million people came, you know, it's a fantastic event. And it's obviously had a lasting legacy, so that's nice to see. There's just one thing to do now, and that's I'm going to show you on the Google Maps and on a National Garden Festival theme park map exactly where we've been. But otherwise, hope you've enjoyed the tour. I'm going to start on the Google map. Now, if you can see this here, here's where we started. Down at wherever the main entrance there. Oh wait. Down here. That bridge I was standing on is there. And we walked down there to the Canal Side Tavern over here, if you can see it, by the marina. Then we walked through this area here. That's the fountain. That's the little spike thing that I showed you. And that's the, it says Formal Gardens, but it's now car park to Waterworld. That's the car park, there's Waterworld there. Then we walked down this road here, past Forge Lane, and we walked up this path here, it says number 9, round the back of there, and we took a turning that brought us out more or less up here. That's where you'll find the the wind-borne sculpture. Then the overgrown area there, that was where the maypole was. Again, difficult to see much now. Nowadays it's apparently Balcock and Pulsall solicitors down below it, but that you can still see where it was, but it's definitely not there. Going back this way, that I think is that's definitely the stone circle. I'm sure of that, and that's still there, and it's still in pretty good nick. That's something you can go and see. The clock, the compass rather, I think it is, that's, you can tell what it was just about, but it's more or less gone. There's the suspension bridge, number 27. That's still there, as you can see, and a lot of this parkland is really pretty nice. It's not bad for somewhere to explore. Moving down here, that's the Morrison's, and then you've got the retail park there, which is, again, that's been built. I'll show you that's been built on the actual garden festival map. This is the garden festival map. So I've printed off the internet so I can show you. We started around about here. That's the roundabout which takes you up to the A500, and that bridge is around here. That main entrance there, that's now a roundabout. But what we did was we started there, overlooking on that bridge, overlooking the main entrance. We walked past the Odeon, which was on those car parks there, past the houses, up to that little bridge there, overlooking the pub and the marina. Again, now it's a Toby Carver. It used to be called the China Gardens, but back when the Garden Festival was on, it was called the Canal Side Tavern. Then we came back up this way here, and we walked past the Etruria Hall. Again, it's grade 2 listed in 1973, incorporated into the moat house now, so you can see where the hotel would have been. It would have joined onto the Etruria Hotel, the Etruria Hall, sorry. That circle there with a path around it, that is the fountain. That little black mark there is a spike. And those walls that we saw, they are around that side of the fountain there. If you can see where the blue line ends, the end of where it says Formal Gardens, that's where those brick walls were with the statues on top. That's that little wharf. Again, it did have little Chinese style wooden buildings around it, but they've been replaced by offices. When we walked down here, we were walking through, if we're in 1986, we'd have been walking through the Formal Gardens, but that took us to Waterworld, which was about here. Again, the cable car station and those buildings there, those buildings I think were the brick buildings which we saw at the bottom of the ski slope. The ski slope must be there, and that top cable car station we saw as well on the ground. But we walked, you can't see the road because it didn't exist at this time, but we walked up that path there, up here, up to the top of there, and that round about there, that's where we saw the wind-borne, the Phoenix sculpture. We walked up there, we saw this little mound here. I think there probably was a sculpture, I think it's gone. Then we walked into this overgrown area, which is where the maypole was, the Staffordshire Potteries Maypole Hill. Again, it's all overgrown now, you can't tell what was there. Then we walked back to here, that was the stone circle area, and that's still there, that's worth seeing. And we walked back through here. Hard to orientate yourself around here, but we did see the cable car station when we walked down here. Then we came back to the clock, that was that round sort of area with hedges around it. Then we walked down here to the suspension bridge. Again, the railway is long gone, but the bridge is still there and it's still pretty much intact. Then we walked, the light on the way for you so you can see. Then we walked down here, again that's where those stone steps were and railings were. We walked through the Woodland Ridge north, down to this area here, and again it's been greened over, it's part of it, and it's got some mature trees there. When we walked back, the whole area where we walked back was gone. That's the Bull and the old Bull and Bush pub there, which was part of the Garden Festival. That has gone. The Labyrinth is more or less where Morrison's was. Festival Expo, that's gone. All this here, where we've got the Super King's Festival Market, the arena, the Festival Market entrance, all that has been turned into Toys R Us, Curry's, Mothercare, the retail park. There's now a road which takes you from here up to the road into Hanley and Etruria, which you can take. But all that is gone. The only thing you can see is along the bottom of here, where that sort of line is there, things have been built there up to the edge of this green area, and there are spots like I showed you. I think that spot where I said you can access the green area is around about here. In fact, no, it's probably more like here. No, that's still there. You can still park up on here, Toys R Us car park, free to park for 4 hours, and you can have a walk around this area. So that's brought us back to this area here, and I'm actually parked here. So the car park's been expanded, but that's more or less where I'm parked, near to what used to be the main entrance, what is now the roundabout. So if you remember the Garden Festival 1986, and any of the places I've given you a tour of, I've actually rung any bells with, you do comment. And if you live locally but you've not been for a while, you know, print off a map of the Garden Festival off the internet. There's loads of them around. You can find loads of copies of this. Print it off and go and have a wander. You know, have a look and see what you can see. There's not much, but again, if you take the route that I took, you can see what's left of it. It was a big event. It was a good thing for Stoke, and it's left a lasting legacy. And that's really all I can say. Right, that's it. Tour's finished. I've covered everything. Again, thanks for watching. Well done if you've made it this far through. I know it's probably pretty boring in places, but if you are interested but you don't fancy making the trip up to Stoke, I've done it for you so you can see exactly what's left. Hope you've enjoyed the tour. Bye.